What is going on, gamers? I hope you guys had a great weekend. This video is going to recap some of the highlights that happened last week and few talking points I want to kind of go over. So if you're new to the channel, hit like if you like the content and subscribe. I much appreciate it. That'll support the channel. And with that, let's talk about and recap some of the interesting things that happened last week because there were a few things that transpired that are some good talking points. It definitely rowdied up social media, and I believe the fanboys out there on both the PlayStation camp and the Microsoft camp, the Xbox camp, in bantering back and forth. And I thought I thought it would be interesting to see and kind of examine why topic at hand is such a hot button topic for both sides, right? So let's get right into it. The first topic that we're going to recap and is the Microsoft acquisition of Bethesda and Phil Spencer. So Phil Spencer's been going around doing a lot of interviews with a lot of media outlets and been given very PC responses to a lot of their questions. But last week, Kotaku had an interview that they posted online with him in which they asked Phil Spencer about several different topics, from Halo being delayed to the Series X launch to the purchase of Bethesda. And that is what has fueled social media in the last week regarding his remarks. And one of the things that for the supporters of my channel that they know is that I'm a pure gamer at hand. It doesn't matter what platform you choose to play games. I don't pick sides, and we want to examine all the information, all the facts of a lot of things that revolve around gaming. And I think that's where a lot of these fanboys kind of live in their own microcosm world of their own platform, and they're not seeing the bigger picture of what the whole gaming industry is all about. And it's really, quite frank, most of the people in gaming don't really care about these topics that they're bringing up, but looking at Phil Spencer and the way he is conducting himself with these interviews and these questions, uh, the gamers and the fans have to realize that, like any corporate spokesperson out there, it doesn't have to be gaming, it could be other companies out there or other different markets out there. But when there's somebody in the executive lead that's talking about their company publicly, it's not done just off the cuff. These particular executives or spokespeople have very thorough training with a PR group or a marketing group within their organization. They're fully aware of the public relations image this will portray on them, based on whether it's an acquisition, a merger, a buyout, or the company being sold to a bigger company. So, all these, public statements have been thoroughly vetted by the PR groups. And that's one of the things, as gamers, you have to understand is that overall, these companies are a business. Microsoft is a business, Sony's a business, Nintendo's a business, all these third-party companies are a business, hardware manufacturers and accessories, it's a business. And at the end of the day, these businesses, have certain strategies when it comes to letting the public know about what they're doing and disclosing things. And with the Bethesda acquisition, we all know that it's been very transparent that this is not going to close until next year, Q2 of 2021. So for the most part, Phil Spencer, anybody from Microsoft or even Bethesda, is going to be very PC about it. But at the same time, these media outlets are going to try to chip away and try to get as much information as possible. And one of the questions that Kotaku did raise was, seriously to ask Phil Spencer whether or not Microsoft can recoup their investment if they didn't go multi-plat, and he said, of course, because Microsoft, if you guys are new here and you guys haven't looked at my other video when I talked about Microsoft Bethesda and the blue ocean strategy that Microsoft is adopting, they are looking at a much bigger picture, a bigger piece of the pie of the gaming industry. by the end of 2020, even with the pandemic that's happening, the gaming industry globally is going to be grossing somewhere upwards of $160 billion. Okay, that's billions. That's a lot of money. And when it comes to the console business, it's roughly estimated to be right around 25 to 28%. PC is very close to the console business at right around 23, but the PC and the console business together is 50% of the gaming business. The other 50% is mobile. So if you look at the console business alone, where it resides with just Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, the PC is almost as equal to those three combined when it comes to business and market share. And you would have to total both PC and console to even equate to what mobile is doing. So when you think about what Microsoft is teeing up, they're teeing up for the long-term vision of how they want to position Xbox as a brand. And that's the other thing, guys, is we should not forget that they stumbled out of the blocks with the Xbox One launch. And, as soon as, the whole old regime of the Xbox with, was it Don Matrick, kind of got segued away from Microsoft. And then when Phil Spencer kind of took the reins and Satya Nadella, took over from Microsoft as a whole, you saw a lot of shifting and changes and long-term strategies happening. And I think right when Phil Spencer took the helm of Xbox, he was on a mission, a long-term goal to rebrand the Xbox brand, and that's where I think Game Pass came out of this. Their subscription model is coming out of this, and it's something that I'll definitely explore in another video to kind of outline that the future of gaming is possibly going to be the subscription-based modeling that Microsoft has set up really well with Game Pass, and that now we have Amazon following suit. Google Stadia is kind of like a similar version, but not as well refined as Game Pass. But it's definitely the future of an ecosystem or a platform that's gonna, far reach more of an audience than just the console side of the business. It's gonna reach the PC gaming market. It's gonna reach the mobile gaming market, as well as the console market. So I think a lot of people are kind of underestimating what Microsoft's doing in the long term, and they're just looking at the short term and asking all these questions on whether or not these games are going to be exclusive to the Xbox platform or not. But if you turn this business upside down and had it reverse, and it was either Nintendo or Sony doing the acquisition, I don't think there would be any doubt that those games that are coming out by Bethesda would be exclusive to those platforms. But because it's Microsoft, and because I think everybody and all the media outlets is looking at past history, and they're using Minecraft as an example, they don't have that definitive answer or confidence that Microsoft is going to keep everything exclusive. But again, Minecraft was a different anomaly. That purchase happened when Satya Nadella was taken over from Microsoft, and it was during that transition where Phil Spencer was starting to take the reins of Microsoft. And with Minecraft, it's a totally different animal than what they did with the Bethesda acquisition, just because Minecraft was a global phenomenon across multiple platforms. And if anything, Microsoft bought it to get the licensing rights to the actual Minecraft characters and environment, because it's more than just games. It's merchandise. It's a whole bunch of other licensing deals with Minecraft. So they definitely got their return on investment on that $2 billion plus acquisition of Mojang, So, but with Bethesda, with the higher $7.5 billion acquisition of Bethesda, they're laying the groundwork for the future. And that future is going to be Game Pass. And I'll reserve that to another video to really dig deeper into this subscription-based model that Game Pass is trying to put together for the long term, and how they're tackling a much bigger market than just the console market and competing against Nintendo and Sony. And the other part of the whole rebranding of the Xbox is you also have to understand that Microsoft has lost a lot of confidence in their brand when it comes to gaming, and within the last couple of years, they're trying to put themselves in a much better light. If you think about crossplay, they've been really heavily promoting crossplay, and if anything, the Bethesda acquisition is something that they can use as leverage. Because if you think about crossplay, guess what? Sony did not really want to adopt crossplay, and they weren't really open to that until they were pressured, not only by Microsoft and Nintendo, but the gaming community, right? In a way, I think, Microsoft probably used Minecraft as leverage because Minecraft VR ended up being exclusive for the PlayStation, but for a while when Minecraft was on the PlayStation, there was a lot of resistance from Sony to have players log in with an Xbox Live account on Minecraft, right? So, if you kind of look at some of the things that played out, there definitely are some signs of maybe some leveraging of Minecraft on the PlayStation platform in order for them to get what they needed with the sign in with Xbox Live as the account platform authenticator for Minecraft. And then guess what? Sony gets a VR exclusive Minecraft, right? So it's definitely what businesses do in order to leverage these things. Because if you think about it, Sony has been buying a lot of exclusives. And they've always done that. It's not nothing new. And if they're buying those exclusives and they're leveraging certain games and taking that away from the Xbox ecosystem for a year or two, Microsoft now has a ton of IPs that they can leverage to kind of prevent that, right? I mean, they're going to honor the two exclusives that Sony, signed with Bethesda prior to the acquisitions, but I'm pretty sure in the long term, Microsoft's going to be able to leverage most of the more common IPs like Doom and maybe Skyrim or Elder Scrolls. But, you know, all these are just talking points and conversations for the gaming community to talk about. We really don't know until Microsoft executes on it. So, I would be careful in suggesting either or. I would just try to keep the dialogue open and just look at it from a business perspective. From a business perspective, they don't need to go multi-plat in order to recoup their investment costs. And if you think about what I just stated about Game Pass and how it's going to reach PC gamers and also mobile via xCloud, by getting all the Bethesda titles onto Game Pass, now you're allowing those titles to be played on PC, on Xbox, and on mobile. Now, when you look at the whole gaming ecosystem as a whole, how much of a percentage of that is Microsoft targeting? Much more than the 25 to 20% of the console market that's consolidated by both Sony and Nintendo and themselves. They're targeting a much bigger, broader picture. And if you don't think these companies are in it for the business and in it for the money, look at Sony and how they're starting to experiment with exclusive games that they've developed first party that they're releasing onto the PC platform. It started with Horizon Zero Dawn, but I would guess that another title is coming to PC pretty soon because they would view the PC market as non-competing just because of the nature of that particular platform being PC based or Windows based. That there's really nothing that would be competition. I think that's why Microsoft views the PC as a non-competitive platform as well, because that market again is huge. It's almost as huge as both three consoles combined, right? Slightly a couple of percentages below, but if you think about the fact that they don't have first party games from Nintendo or Sony on the PC platform, and the PC market is almost equal to the console market combined, that tells you where there's a lot of money to be made. And Sony's no stranger to that. Sony back in even like from what I remember in the late 90s, when I had friends that were developing and were working for Sony, they were making PC games already back then. They just happened to kind of refocus themselves and focus on console development. But Sony's no stranger to PC development. So, yeah. So this whole Phil Spencer thing, Bethesda thing, I think it was very interesting to see how it kind of blew up. But I just want to kind of give you guys my take. It's a business decision. It's a business strategy. You guys have to understand everything, whether it's the head of Sony was his name, Jim Ryan, or if it's Doug Bowser from Nintendo, or if it's Phil Spencer from Microsoft. They all have a PR team that has vetted them, that has trained them into speaking with the public, doing public interviews, and a lot of their statements have already been kind of pre-conditioned or pre-strategized out. So yeah, I think until things start to execute, that'll be the time when we can actually discuss if these games are going to be exclusive or are they going to multi-plat. But I think for now it's very interesting. I mean, it's allowing me to kind of discuss it right now on my channel, but I'm not picking sides. I'm really trying to give you guys a different perspective on this, and to let you guys know from a business perspective, it's just part of the game. It's part of their game in terms of how they're building out their public relations in the public eye, and really a lot of the flames being thrown back and forth between the fanboys. That's all it is, guys. I mean, if you guys are a true gamer like myself and really will play games based on, doesn't matter what platform it is, you're not going to really care about this. And the majority of the gaming market, the mass consumer, is not going to care about these little details. It's just the fanboys that are raging back and forth. And quite frankly, it's kind of stupid, because whether you're on one side or the other, they're just trying to justify their purchase or their support behind one platform. And really, it just comes down to the games. I think one thing people don't realize is that, if the games are good, people are going to go buy it. Look at Nintendo, and look at what the Switch has done. Look at the amount of Switches that are sold, and look at what all these fanboys have talked about Nintendo in the past, where these games are trash, they're not mainstream, but they're selling upwards of 10, 20 million a piece in terms of, software. The hardware selling like crazy. So, in the end, it really comes down to games, and I think next to Nintendo, Sony has a really strong lineup. But now with Microsoft purchasing Bethesda and bringing a lot of stuff in-house as first party, I feel that Microsoft is on their way. They really have to prove it with their game lineups in the next few years to really tell me whether or not they're up to the same level as a Nintendo or as some of the first party Sony studios. But I think they're on a good path. They're on a good trajectory, and this is good for gamers like ourselves. So that topic I kind of want to go over. It's kind of good stuff to talk about. I just want to kind of give you guys my take on it. Comment below if you like what I said, if you have a different perspective. I like to have meaningful dialogue with my supporters. So definitely post down your comments and what you think, and we can banter back and forth in the comments section. And then the next topic, which kind of again fuse the whole fanboy arguments back and forth, is the whole PlayStation 5 UI. And what's interesting also is, if you take a step back, Sony unveiled the PlayStation UI on the day that all the Microsoft embargo was going to be lifted, and all the press was going to be able to write whatever they want. And it was very strategic. And that's the other business aspect that I wanted to explain to you guys as gamers, is that these companies have competitive intelligence teams that will find information about the other. They're all, so even if publicly they're saying, oh yeah, they're not our competitors, we're, they have a lot of respect, and for the most part they do. I think individually Phil Spencer has a lot of respect for Nintendo and Sony, but when it comes to business and they have to drive their marketing strategy, they have to be very strategic, right? So all these companies have competitive intelligence people, and yeah, Sony dropped the PlayStation UI because they knew people were dying for more information about the UI, the whole hinting about Burger King and whether or not Burger King was going to unveil the UI or not. And Sony dropped it that morning when they knew the embargo was going to lift, and there's going to be a lot of information and press on Microsoft and their system, very strategically released. And if you got, I'm just telling you from a business perspective, that's how they do it, and that's how they undercut a lot of each other when it comes to the news cycle. So with that, what's interesting that came out of the UI is now this whole argument about 4K native for the UI versus 1080p, and quite frankly, this is another trash type of argument back and forth to justify everybody's preferred platform or choice. I think no one in the mass gaming market is going to say, oh yeah, I bought this PlayStation because of the 4K UI, or I bought this Xbox because of the 4K UI. No one's going to say that. They're going to buy for the games, like I stated. So it's just crazy that people are taking this, like they're grabbing onto straws, and they're trying to talk about this and justify one or the another about the direction of the company and why it's so next gen and all this stuff. And I kind of sit back and laugh, because I mean, my Xbox One X that I have hooked up to a 4K, I don't count pixels. I don't look at the UI and go, oh man, this sucks on my 4K monitor that it's not native 4K, it's 1080p. I didn't even notice. I'm not a Digital Foundry, even though I watch Digital Foundry. I love their analysis from a tech perspective about pixel per pixel, about technologies with graphics, with shaders, all that stuff, and that gets me pretty interesting because I like to learn about those things and grow my knowledge and kind of see them compare based on their knowledge base. But it's very niche. The standard gaming market, mass market consumers don't really care about that. And that's why it's so funny that these arguments go back and forth between the UI, and it's hilarious, And even down to I've seen justifications on the Sony fanboy side about how innovative the UI is, the 4K, the snap-on feature and all that stuff. And then I'm like, wow, okay. That's interesting because I remember back when the Xbox One was launching, Microsoft showcased snap-in features, video streaming from YouTube and live streaming from like sports events and snapping on next to or with the Xbox dashboard. But as the years went by, they started removing those features because they weren't really functional. And that's where, my quick reaction video that I posted up on the PlayStation UI, I really question, from a marketing perspective, getting the information out, it got really good buzzwords and really good, features that were highlighting. But in practical use as a gamer, are you going to utilize that function? And the fact that they're going to tie that into PlayStation Plus, and you need that subscription in order to access the how-to videos. But then those how-to videos seem like they're curated by Sony, and are there going to be enough videos for every new game that comes out, right? So there's a lot of questions to how that's going to be portrayed. And then the whole watching your friends stream, I mean, that's good in theory, and that might be good for the first couple of weeks, but long term, is that really practical as a gamer? Like, for me, the UI is very quick and easy for me to navigate through my games, figure out what I want to play, and then launch my games and go into the games right away. All these additional feature sets and everything, I just don't know how practical that is. Maybe Microsoft was a little too early 7 years ago when they had the same feature sets with the snap-on and the video help and all that stuff that Sony's doing now. Maybe now people are more open to it. I mean, back then people gave Microsoft a lot of shit about, devices being on 24/7 and connected to the internet. Now everybody's kind of okay with that. If you have a Google Home or an Alexa, your devices are connected 100%, and they're listening to you. And there's this whole debacle of whether or not, you're giving away privacy and all that thing. So it's very interesting to hear arguments on both sides, and I kind of laugh at the arguments on the UI. So I would say as gamers, I don't really care. I hope you guys don't care as well too. I hope you guys just care about the games, and that's what we want to talk about in this channel is the games and how good the games are, or how bad the games are, or what kind of games you guys like, right? And in talking about this whole thing about the UI and all about the games and everything and the whole privacy and fully connected, let's segue into the next thing that Sony got a little bit of blindsided by their update to the PlayStation 4 with their version 8.0, and there was talks about them recording party chat, and they had to release a statement last week. Their PR team at Sony had to release a statement stating that they weren't going to actively record sessions, party sessions, and that it would be initiated by the user if they want to complain about a particular person in the party chat and report them, right? So it's all a matter of PR and perception. It got ahead of them a little bit, and this is very similar to how people misconstrued Microsoft and the way they were trying to launch the Xbox One, and Sony got caught up in something very similar. So it's interesting, but at the same time, they were able to get out there, put out a PR statement. But yeah, I was watching on social media. People were utilizing, the whole privacy invasion and all that stuff. And guys, you know what? I hate to break this to you from a business perspective. All companies are doing this, not just Sony. Everybody's doing this, okay? And on the same aspect of the platform that they're based on, even if they tell you they're not actively recording, which for the most cases, they aren't actively recording, but they have to keep certain regulations and specific things open, because if they get subpoenaed by a court to tap and to record information based on a criminal case or something, they actually have the ability to do so, unless they've created a framework where it's fully hands off on their end. But the fact that you kind of hear them say, hey, you know what, individuals can record and report and all this stuff. I don't know the details too much about it, but I can tell you right now that, most of these companies, if they get subpoenaed by by a judge, they will get into your privacy, your information if you're talking in public chats, and things like that. And if you establish a private party chat, that might be a little bit different, where there's some expectation of privacy when it's a private chat. But if you're in a chat party function that's considered public, where you didn't create a privacy guideline, or you didn't invite specific people, but it was just like people were just thrown together, they have the ability to record and utilize that and actually hand that over to a criminal court case, right? So yeah, outside of that, guys, it all the disclaimers and everything, we signed away our rights for privacy. If you guys don't understand that, from a business case perspective, when you hit approve to install an app, to approve with an iOS feature, an Apple feature, a Microsoft feature, a Sony feature, a Nintendo feature, there's you're agreeing to a end user license agreement. And with that end user license agreement, man, these companies with their private platforms have a lot of power and a lot of things that they can do. So if you think your data is safe, I hate to break it to you, it isn't. And yeah, don't and for me, I want to kind of educate you guys on things that are happening, in the gaming and in the tech and the business world. And yeah, this is a very common practice. Why do you think services out there that are free that have made money, like Facebook, like Twitter, like even YouTube, right? They are able to track and do a lot of things and aggregate a lot of information from users, viewers, things like that. So your data is probably the most richest valuable information out there, and yeah, and basically companies like that, it's a very common practice. So yeah, Sony just got caught in the whole PR mess. Social media went really big on this with the whole privacy thing with the party chats, but they released a statement. They needed to do that, and that's a canned statement to really try to bring down or temper down all that noise that's happening right now regarding their policies regarding party chats. So, hopefully that'll work and this hot button topic dies down for Sony. But yeah, I just want to reiterate that all companies do this, and in terms of recapping gaming news, I don't think there's anything. I mean, those were the big ones. I think right now I'm in the process of procuring the new Mario Kart Live so I can test the augmented reality for Mario Kart. So I have a 5-year-old son, so we're gonna test that out and see how that plays and how the technology plays into what Nintendo has built together with augmented reality with that. But yeah, other gaming news cycles. Let me just kind of hit one last thing. One of the games that is on my anticipated list to play is Cyberpunk 2077. And last week we saw a video drop of some of the vehicles that you'll be able to kind of traverse through the game. And man, am I excited. Let me know if you guys are excited for Cyberpunk 2077. To me, it's the fanboys between the Sony and the Microsoft and even the Nintendo. They talk about next gen and all this stuff, and for me, it's for me, there's really not a differentiator between what's next gen and what's old gen. It's just games, and Cyberpunk is a game that's going to look good in not only current generation hardware, but will look even better in next generation hardware. But if you have a PC like me with a GTX 3080, it's going to look really nice on PC, right? And that's the thing, is that for console gamers, they're finally getting the jump that they need from both Sony and Microsoft to kind of get them up to par with the PC, but the PC is still going to be way ahead. But again, there's a huge bigger investment in PC gaming than it is in console gaming, where console is basically a PC but specifically purposed to just play games and nothing else, maybe streaming videos and media and stuff like that, but ideally to just play games. And if you think about that, one of the last topics I kind of want to discuss a little bit is that the performance that they're going to get out of these consoles are going to be fairly on par with PC for the next few years. I think when you have a console where you can go closer to the metal when it comes to coding and developing, you're going to get a lot more out of it when it comes to visual fidelity. I think PC has always been the performance delta where you're going to get always the high frame rate, the high resolution, and then if you have a good video card, then you'll be able to kind of get more of the visual aspect of it. Whereas consoles, they've always tried to make their games look really pretty, but they would sacrifice frame rate. You would see a lot of games at 30 frames per second, or you'll also see games at 4K or high resolution, right? So, I mean, okay, so this is just my opinion based on what I'm seeing with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, is that they are primarily going to have games that are going to be 4K 30 frames. I think if you're getting 60 frames per second on 4K, you're not going to be able to get ray tracing. There's a huge trade-off to that, and even PC gamers know this. So on the console side, they're touting a lot about ray tracing, and what you're going to get with ray tracing is that if you get ray tracing and 60 frames, your resolution is going to be very low. You're going to omit a lot of 3D animations or like additional 3D models in your environment. You're going to lose a lot of environments. The crowds are going to be less. Objects are not going to be as abundant as normal. So there's always a balance or trade-off. But I think for the most part, most of the games that are tailored for the console, which are like action adventure, role playing, 4K 30 frames with ray tracing is probably going to be the baseline standard. If they could get 60 frames with ray tracing, there's going to be some sacrifices along the way. And if you guys don't believe me, in a few years, when we do comparisons with games that are across multiple platforms, the PC is going to show that the consoles have been kind of iterated down in order to reach certain benchmarks. But for me, Cyberpunk 2077 looks to be the game to be very, very next gen. Looks very cool, and I think it's going to be the next biggest game that I'm going to be playing for a while. There's going to be a lot to it. I view it as a role-playing game because you're taking on a character and you're taking on a storyline for that specific character and traversing through the world. There's a lot of options, and it's going to be interesting. I'm going to be playing it on my PC, and then I'm going to probably get it on consoles to kind of compare. But for the most part, I'm a PC gamer, and if I can, I'll play it on Xbox or PlayStation, or I play games on Switch when I'm traveling, for work. But yeah, guys, just a quick recap video of all the latest news, catching up to the news cycle this week. But yeah, I just kind of want to touch upon some of the hot button topics. You guys tell me what you guys think of all the things that are going on. We're only a few weeks away from the new consoles releasing, from some really cool games coming out. Put down in the comments what your anticipated games are, whether you play on PC or you play on the console. Are you getting a next gen system? Are you getting a PS5 and Xbox? Are you staying with the current gen until more games come out for the new next gen? Post your comments below. Again, I really appreciate all the support. We're slowly growing this channel. We're getting close to 100 subscribers, and that's the first milestone. Get to the first 100, and then the next milestone is, can we get to 1,000 subscribers, right? And again, if you guys don't know me, I'm all about just talking about games and tech. I don't really care about the platforms. You guys can come here and talk intelligently about the games without having to bash each other, because end of the day, it's all about the games and how fun these games are. And at the same time, my channel, I also talk a lot about tech when it comes to outside the gaming industry, when it comes to AI, which I think is going to affect gaming in the long term with the AI machine learning aspects of the technology. And then also I do a lot of retro game repairs. So I have a lot of classic systems from the 80s that are not fully functional now. A lot of things have gone bad on the components, and I do refurbish them back to life. So I'm looking at putting some videos together for the retro gamer collectors out there. If they have issues with some of their old classic gaming systems, I'll be posting some videos on that too as well. So again, my channel is very variety mainly gaming, but also we talk tech. And on top of that, we also talk gaming in a perspective of a business perspective. So, giving you my insights from a business person and applying a lot of these concepts in gaming and how they're approaching gaming as a business, which they always do. And you can apply that to other markets out there. So wherever your career path is, the information that I'm sharing with you is going to be relevant to those companies that you're going to work for in the future. So hopefully the stuff that I'm talking about helps out and gives you a better understanding of all aspects of business, from business managing strategies to marketing to PR to all that stuff. So yeah, look out for another video I'm going to make where we really go into a deeper dive into the business of subscription-based modeling versus the traditional modeling, and how that's really going to revolutionize the gaming industry. We saw it happen with video, with the way Netflix ushered in a new way to watch movies, and you saw it in music, and gaming's going to be there. Even though gaming's a different media format, it's slowly going to get there, and it just requires a company to put it in the right formula. And I think for right now, Microsoft is putting in the right formula, but Amazon's catching up. They have a very similar model, not quite exact as Game Pass, but very similar. But it'll be interesting to see where it unfolds in the next few years and who's going to be on top when it comes to just the overall market gaming share, right? The gaming market share of things. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great week. Post comments down below. I love to interact with all my supporters and all the people that have stopped by. If you guys like my content, go ahead and hit like. And if you like the content and you want to see more, definitely subscribe to my channel. I enjoy the support. I do this for fun. And I do this on my spare time. I have a full-time job, so the stuff that I pump out, I try to push out about a couple of videos a week, just to talk about games and to have like I said, very reasonable dialogue with the gaming community. So with that, guys, have a great week, and I will talk to you guys later. Take care.